Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. Senate Republicans on Friday blocked a bill via filibuster. It's the first successful Senate filibuster during the Biden administration. The bill passed the House earlier this month. President Biden just revealed a massive $6 trillion budget for the 2022 fiscal year. If passed, that would make it the most sustained spending since World War II. Biden administration sends mixed messages on vaccine passports. The DHS secretary says they're looking into it, but a press secretary gives a conflicting statement. Despite a federal ban, hundreds of local governments are still buying surveillance equipment from blacklisted Chinese companies. The FCC has designated that the companies pose a national security threat. And a 99-year-old World War II veteran says he is very proud of his service. The former Marine shares his story and gives advice to the younger generation. Senate Republicans on Friday blocked a bill via filibuster. The bill would form a commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol breach. Here are the details.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 35. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to.
The January 6th commission would have needed 60 votes to advance the resolution through the Senate, so it failed. Republican Senators Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, and Rob Portman joined all Democrats in voting in favor of the bill.
Senate Republicans for months publicly supported the idea of a commission. But now, all of a sudden, the Senate minority and the Senate minority leader waged a partisan filibuster against the bill.
GOP senators said they believed the commission could be used against them politically, and former President Trump called it a Democrat trap. Republican Senator Susan Collins wrote an amendment in an effort to persuade some of her colleagues to save the bill. It would ensure the commission staff were selected on a bipartisan basis, but her effort failed to change many of her colleagues' minds. Texas Senator John Cornyn says he doesn't think a commission is the only way to get to the bottom of what happened. Speaking on the Senate floor Thursday, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he did not believe a January 6th commission would uncover new facts or promote healing. It's the first successful Senate filibuster during the Biden administration. The bill passed the House on May 19th with some Republican support.
President Biden visited a joint base near Norfolk, Virginia. He thanked members of the armed forces and their families just before Memorial Day weekend. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more.
Biden paid a visit to Joint Base Langley Eustis in Virginia on Friday. He thanked service members for their selfless service as the nation heads into Memorial Day weekend. He applauded the diligent efforts of soldiers making multiple tours in Afghanistan during the U.S.'s longest war.
You got back up again and go back again and again and again. Once, wiping the blood off a seat-em-up armor Humvee is enough to get you focused. Then to saddle up next time and go back and back again. You're incredible.
Biden's afternoon address to soldiers and airmen was the second visit he made to the Hampton Roads region. He and the First Lady stopped there earlier this month as part of Biden's Getting America Back on Track tour. Biden also previewed U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan as the full troop withdrawal approaches on September 11th.
And now as we draw down, we're also going to focus on the urgent work of rebuilding over-the-horizon capabilities that will allow us to take out al-Qaeda if they return to Afghanistan.
Earlier in the day, VP Harris gave an address at the U.S. Naval Academy's commissioning ceremony. It was the first time a woman gave the address in the school's history. She said the graduates are prepared for any threat. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
There was a disagreement today from Biden administration officials. One said they're looking into vaccine passports, an idea they turned down before. Another said nothing has changed. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that and more from a senator who wants vaccine passports banned.
The White House rejected vaccine passports before.
The government is not now, nor will we be supporting a system that requires Americans to carry a credential.
Now, almost 2 months later, Director of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas told GMA they're considering these passports for international travel.
We're taking a very close look at that. You know, one of our principles that has guided us throughout this pandemic is the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure that any passport that we provide for vaccinations is accessible to all.
This sounds like a shift in position, but the White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary later told reporters that they haven't changed their stance. They didn't say Mayorkas made a mistake. Meanwhile, in the Senate, Republican Ted Cruz is looking to ban them federally. He told Fox News he supports vaccines, but wants to protect the medical freedom of Americans.
Listen, I think vaccines are terrific. I've had the vaccine myself. I think it's given us a lot of freedom. But I think there's a real potential for government overreach. And I don't believe anyone should be forced to take the vaccine. It should be your personal choice. You should make the choice based on your health, based on the decisions you want.
His bill, he says, would also ban employers from firing workers who turn down the COVID vaccine. An example of this is Christopher Neve, a former deputy working in North Carolina, who says he was fired for turning it down. He's now suing the Durham County Sheriff's Office in hopes of getting his job back. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Hundreds of U.S. local governments and schools are still buying surveillance products from blacklisted Chinese tech companies. This despite a federal ban. Here are the details.
Local-level government organizations in the U.S. are still buying surveillance products from 2 blacklisted Chinese companies. According to government contract data, more than 300 government organizations, such as cities, counties, towns, and schools, have purchased from China's Hikvision and Dahua Technology after the federal government had banned them. Pennsylvania-based video surveillance research firm IPVM reviewed the deals based on government contracts that a Florida tech company obtained. The U.S. Commerce Department added the 2 Chinese companies to its blacklist in October 2019. It was for their role in supporting the Chinese Communist regime's human rights abuses in China's Xinjiang region. Beijing has been abusing ethnic and religious minorities in Xinjiang through torture, forced sterilizations, political indoctrination, and forced labor. The U.S., the UK, Canada, and the Netherlands have denounced the abuses as genocide. In March this year, the U.S. Federal Communications Commission designated Hikvision and Dahua as companies that pose a threat to national security. 3 other Chinese companies also received the same designation. They are tech firms Huawei, ZTE, and Hytera Communications.
3 House lawmakers introduced a bipartisan bill Friday. It would impose a ban on companies sponsoring the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics.
House Republican Mike Waltz and 2 Democrat representatives, Tom Malinowski and Jennifer Wexton, on Friday introduced the Beijing Winter Olympics Sponsor Accountability Act. The bill would ban companies that sponsor the Beijing Olympics from selling their products or services to the federal government or in U.S. federal buildings, including military bases. The ban would only be lifted on a company if it drops its sponsorship or the games are relocated out of China. Malinowski tweeted that he doesn't think it's right to hold the Olympics in a country where the government is committing genocide. Waltz wrote in a statement, "We need to leverage the resources of the U.S. government to encourage these businesses to do the right thing and press the IOC to relocate the games from China." Waltz also introduced a resolution in February calling on the U.S. to boycott the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics unless the games are relocated. The games are scheduled to start on February 4th, 2022. Its sponsors include Coca-Cola, Airbnb, Intel, and Visa.
And on Friday afternoon, Biden unveiled his budget for the 2022 fiscal year. It includes the trillions of dollars he's already proposed in spending plans. NTD speaks with an economist to ask what this means for the American people.
President Biden unveiled a $6 trillion budget for the 2022 fiscal year, just before the holiday weekend when Congress leaves town for a week. Included in the plan is raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, increasing tax on the wealthiest to 39.6%, and implementing a global minimum tax. It would also add at least 4 years of free education, 2 in preschool and 2 in community college. NTD asked economist Van Skyn what this budget means for Americans.
But one thing that I notice is just more dependency on the federal government, more expansion of the federal government, more than what we would expect any other time, and definitely more than the average taxpayer's ability to pay.
Ginn served in the Office of Management and Budget during the Trump administration. He said this budget is over $1 trillion more than what would be a responsible budget. Ginn says these budgets are like Obama-era budgets on steroids, and this is heading in the wrong direction.
On average, per American, this is increasing how much we owe in debt by $40,000 per person. And that's on top of the $80,000 we already owe. So this is just a massive increase in the size and scope of government.
The budget is based on predictions, but Ginn says it's not painting an accurate picture.
They're also showing pretty low levels of inflation of right around 2%, when inflation has reached 4% just over the last year. So the economic assumptions that are in this president's budget are bogus, which is leading to an unfortunate situation to where, in my view, the deficits will be even larger than what they're projecting.
Ginn says this kind of spending will lead to inflation, which will hurt lower-income workers whose wages don't rise at the same rate as inflation. That means they won't be able to afford the higher prices of goods. So he says these policies will create more income inequality. Ginn doesn't believe the budget will pass under Congress, but notes it's also possible Democrats could use reconciliation measures to pass it without Republican support. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And Biden's $6 trillion budget plan released on Friday drew heavy criticism from GOP lawmakers. A major concern is the big increase of federal debt and certain radical priorities it would fund.
Right after the White House published the president's budget for fiscal year 2022, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell tweeted that President Biden's proposal would drown American families in debt, deficits, and inflation. In a statement, McConnell said he's concerned that Democrats want to borrow and spend on a scale that America has not seen since World War II. This week, Senate Republicans counteroffered with a nearly $1 trillion proposal to fund infrastructure. McConnell said if Washington Democrats can move beyond the socialist daydreams and go it alone partisanship, we could get a lot of important work done for our country. Senator Lindsey Graham, the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee, also sent out a tweet claiming that President Biden's budget is dead on arrival. It is insanely expensive, dramatically increases non-defense spending and taxes. Over time, it will result in a weakened Department of Defense. He cited a Fox News poll which shows that 46% of people say Biden is too liberal. That's 10% up from December, before he took office. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy also published a statement, calling Biden's budget the most reckless and irresponsible budget proposal in my lifetime. It's wrong for America. Biden's full budget proposal must also go through Congress, where Democrats have only a thin majority.
The Biden administration has pushed electric vehicles as a solution to climate change, and it's a significant part of his infrastructure plan. But until recently, Biden's energy secretary had investments in an electric vehicle company. NTD's Lynn Len brings us more.
A department spokesman said Secretary Jennifer Granholm sold her holdings in electric vehicle company Proterra this week, clearing a net gain of $1.6 million. She had until late August to fully divest up to $5 million in stock options from the company. That's after concerns of a conflict of interest. Proterra makes technology for electric vehicles, which is a key piece of the Biden administration's energy and climate change plans. Biden's infrastructure plan also calls for a $174 billion investment in the area. Granholm was also a board member of Proterra, which brought concerns from ethics experts and Republican officials. The Washington Free Beacon reports by the time President Biden had the virtual tour of Proterra's facility on April 20th, Granholm had not offloaded any of her shares. If Biden's capital gains tax proposals pass in their current versions, Granholm, along with several other cabinet members, will be taxed up to 43.4%. The increase is assumed to take effect from late April. Lynn Lin, NTD News.
A former USPS mail carrier is admitting that he dumped close to 2,000 pieces of mail in just 3 days last year. They include close to 100 election ballots. NTD's Allison Lee has the details.
Former U.S. Postal Service mail carrier Nicholas Bouchain pleaded guilty on Thursday to discarding 1,875 pieces of mail in New Jersey last September and October. Among the pieces he discarded were 99 general election ballots for Essex County voters. That was back when he worked for USPS. The 26-year-old man threw away the mail in 2 dumpsters outside a local bank and a restaurant in 3 different days. Other than election ballots, he also threw away 276 pieces of political mail, including campaign flyers for a local race, 627 pieces of first-class mail, 873 pieces of standard-class mail, and 2 pieces of certified mail. Law enforcement found the discarded mail in the dumpsters a few days later and put them back into the delivery system. Authorities arrested Bouchain on October 7th, and a criminal complaint shows that he started working for USPS last July. The Justice Department is charging the former mail carrier with 1 count of desertion of mail. He could face up to 1 year in prison and a $100,000 fine. They will sentence him in September. According to NJ.com, Bouchain's attorneys say that his actions were not politically motivated. In September and October last year, law enforcement in various other states also found election ballots in dumpsters, including in California, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. Allison Lee, NTD News.
President Biden disbanded the Trump-era 1776 Commission on his first day of office. The group's aim was said to celebrate and promote patriotic education. Now they're starting up again, this time in a non-government capacity. NTD's Christina Kim speaks to one of its members.
The 1776 Commission is urging the Biden administration to drop its proposal to fund history and civics programs that promote critical race theory or related curricula under the misleading name of anti-racism. The Trump-appointed advisory panel, which was disbanded on President Biden's first day in office, since reconvened for the first time on Monday at Hillsdale College in Washington, D.C. Critics of the group say America is systemically racist, and they call the findings of the group racist and political, not historical. NTD spoke to Dr. Carol Swain, a retired political science professor and a member of the commission. She makes a distinction about the aim of the group to promote unifying patriotic education.
We're not trying to cover up America's past and the fact that we have made mistakes when it comes to race relations. But the true story of America is a nation that's always striven to become better.
Dr. Swain says curricula like critical race theory are divisive and anti-American, and that ultimately this division serves the interest of America's enemies. For one, she says, people wouldn't want to join the military to protect a nation that is thought to be fundamentally evil. The 1776 Commission aims to counter this and rebuild Americans' common bonds, mutual friendship, and civic devotion.
What we're pushing is much closer to Dr. Martin Luther King's vision, where people would be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. America is not supposed to be a nation where we single out any group because of their race or their ethnicity and demonize them, for the color of their skin.
She says ultimately, education belongs at the local level, and moving forward, the commission seeks to help facilitate grassroots efforts.
One of the things we hope to do is to have a website and a way of communicating with groups that they can come and we can be a resource to them. But yes, the change has to happen at the grassroots.
She encourages other states to set up their own 1776 Commission as a way to study the true history of America and encourage patriotism. The commission urges parent groups to join school boards and local activists to fight back against children being taught false narratives. Christina Kim, NTD News.
The co-founder of Black Lives Matter plans to step down from her role as executive director. This comes amid questions about her personal finances and the foundation's potential mishandling of donations. Patrisse Cullors told the Associated Press that she's leaving to focus on other projects and planned her departure a year ago. She has a second book coming out and a television deal with Warner Brothers. But the departure comes as questions surrounding her finances build. In April, reports surfaced that she bought 4 homes worth $3.2 million. Critics think Cullors might have used donations meant for Black Lives Matter to enrich herself. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation denied paying for her house. But the head of Black Lives Matter Greater New York City called for an investigation into Cullors' finances. Cullors has said her money comes from other sources, including a YouTube deal and book sales. And according to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, only about 2% of the millions of Americans who served in World War II are still alive today. NTD's Sapphire Quarter brings us one of their stories.
Slave and gay, I always think of you that way.
World War II vet Louis Imfeld was born in 1922. He enlisted in the Marines soon after Pearl Harbor at just 19 years old. In the Pacific, he fought at Guadalcanal in the first major battle the Allies started with the Japanese. He says he can still remember what it was like to be in battle.
I didn't particularly care for it.
He served 2.5 years and was ready for a second tour when the U.S. dropped the atomic bombs, ending the war. After he returned home, he met his wife, Lois. They were married for 66 years, until she passed away 2 years ago. While speaking with him, his humility and gentle acceptance of the world struck me. He says he was very proud of his service, what he calls the little he was able to do for his country.
I really have had a life which I enjoyed, and consider myself a very fortunate person.
I asked him what his advice is for the younger generation.
Get a job and behave yourself. That's what they told me.
For his 99th birthday, his local community drove a parade of golf carts past his home to honor him and say thank you for his service. Sapphire Quarter, NTD News.
The annual motorcycle ride honoring lost and missing war heroes was met with obstacles early on, but now the coast is clear. The ride will take place in D.C. this Memorial Day weekend. NTD's Steve Lance has more from the Capitol.
Rain or shine, Rolling to Remember will roll on this Sunday over Memorial Day weekend, with tens of thousands of riders expected to join from all over the country. The motorcycle ride honors servicemen and women who were lost or missing in action.
We're here out of respect for the veterans who served our country, and for those who did not make it home, those who sacrificed their lives.
But a few weeks ago, the event faced some initial road bumps when the Pentagon refused a permit to use the parking lot for staging.
To continue this tradition, more than 30 years, the staging area has always been at the Pentagon parking lot. I drove by there this morning, packed with cars, but the Pentagon told us that it wasn't safe because of COVID and that they had to deny our permit this year.
Joe Cinelli, the National Executive Director of a veteran service organization, AMVETS, said it wasn't an option for him to give up on the event, so he reached out to RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., but that required approval from D.C.'s Mayor, Muriel Bowser.
They needed to get a waiver from the mayor to be allow us to stage here. And of course, this decision was made before the restrictions were lifted, and the mayor made the call at the last minute and told RFK that we could stage here, and we're really grateful for that.
We're here at the parking lot at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., which will be acting as the staging and gathering area for the bikes before they take off. There's also tents here that will be offering readjustment counseling for veterans, as well as vaccines if they might want one. Cinelli says he will be back again next year, and he doesn't want to lose focus on what the ride is really about.
We're going to continue this tradition. I foresee us until every missing in action is accounted for, and we have more than 82,000, so that's going to take a while. Where the location is in the future years, we'll worry about that and figure that out after this one.
The motorcycle ride is going to take place on Sunday throughout the nation's capital, with major road closures expected throughout the city. Steve Lance, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
Coming up, a murder case is closed. The killer of Mollie Tibbetts is convicted. And New York City continues to see gun violence. This latest incident was a shootout in broad daylight. One of the suspects rode off on a scooter. That and more here on NTD News. The man accused of killing Mollie Tibbetts in 2018 was convicted today, guilty of first-degree murder. 26-year-old Christian Rivera faces a life sentence without parole for murdering Mollie Tibbetts, a 20-year-old Iowa student. Tibbetts disappeared while out for a run on the evening in July 2018 in Brooklyn, Iowa. Her body found in a cornfield, stabbed multiple times. Born in Mexico, Rivera was in the U.S. illegally and made money as a farm worker. In his testimony this week, Rivera blamed the murder on two armed men with covered faces. The prosecutor asked the jury to convict Rivera on the overwhelming evidence against him, while the defense attorney called the state's investigation of the case sloppy. Two men opened fire at each other in broad daylight in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Police are still searching for the suspects. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
One man dressed in sweatpants, a hoodie, and a mask is seen walking quickly down the sidewalk with one hand inside his belt line. As he runs around the corner talking on his cell phone with one hand, he pulls out a pistol and begins firing with the other hand. He seems to aim at another individual, also dressed in sweatpants and a hoodie, who is seen firing back. They both take cover in between parked cars along West 103rd Street around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The two individuals fire shots at each other as they expose themselves only for split seconds at a time to fire more rounds at the other. One individual appears to run away only to hide behind the next car and appears to return fire. That individual reportedly fled southbound on Broadway, and the other individual can be seen fleeing the scene on a go-ped scooter.
Anyone with information regarding this incident is asked to call the NYPD's Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS or visit their website. Two police officers in Austin, Texas responded to a pickup truck that was on fire. Amidst the chaos, one of the officers realized an unconscious man was still inside the burning vehicle. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Officers Chandler Carrera and Eddie Pineda sprung into action to save a man's life. While one officer ran with a fire extinguisher towards the burning truck, the other withstood the scorching heat from the flames and quickly opened the driver's side door. Inside the truck, an unconscious man sitting in the driver's seat. As the fire grew, the officer quickly sprayed the flames with the extinguisher, just enough to give both officers time to pull out the unconscious man. Just as the officers pulled the man out from the flames, you can hear an explosion from the burning truck. According to KXAN, an Austin Fire Department spokesperson says the driver of the truck suffered a medical emergency at the same time that he was backing into a parking spot. His foot stayed pressed on the accelerator, causing the tires to spin in place and spark the fire. He was later treated at a hospital for serious smoke inhalation. One witness told the Austin American-Statesman it was almost like a scene from a movie. The witness said the officers are heroes for risking their lives to save a man. But the officers said they don't consider themselves heroes. They were only doing their job. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, a candlelight vigil was held in Silicon Valley one day after the shooting at the light rail yard. People throughout California shared their stories and tears. A Lavender festival is starting in California. Locals can harvest their own bundles at a U-Pickup center in Lavender Farm.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
In preparation for the busy Memorial Day weekend, the Chicago Police Department has canceled days off and enforced longer shifts. Hundreds of retired police volunteers will come out to help the families of officers. One volunteer spoke with NTD about the action they're taking.
Retired officers of the Chicago Police Department, or CPD, are stepping up to help fellow officers through a Facebook group known as Operation Homefront. The founder is former Chief of Detectives Eugene Roy.
As of this morning, there's over 1,000 members in just a little bit over 4 days.
Roy tells NTD that the Facebook group was put up on May 21st, the day when the CPD enforced 2 weeks of intense work.
Effective as of Friday night, that their days off would be canceled until June 7th, and that they would all be working 12-hour shifts.
During a May 24th press conference, Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown says the police schedules are adjusted to deal with potential summer violence.
You know, as we approach Memorial Day, I think from a historical perspective, better to prepare for the worst and than not be prepared.
Brown blames the violence on Chicago's policy of not only releasing those guilty of misdemeanors over the last 2 years, but also now releasing people guilty of felonies, including murder. Officials justify the releases by forcing the offenders to wear electronic monitors.
I'm going to talk slow because I want you to get these numbers. 534 people charged as felons in possession of a weapon have been released back in the community on electronic monitoring.
Brown says as summer approaches, more young people coming to downtown for entertainment bring more work to the police.
These are mostly young people of color, mostly young black kids, and only 9 out of several hundred led to an arrest. Their behavior led to an arrest. Most are just trying to enjoy the downtown.
A recent CPD survey found downtown businesses welcome police.
And the vast majority like the presence, like the blue lights, want it to stay, feel safer.
I've received a number of texts and messages, members of the public showing their appreciation.
Last year's Memorial Day weekend was the deadliest since 2015, with 10 people killed and 39 wounded in shootings.
People throughout Northern California gathered Thursday to support members affected by the VTA rail yard shooting. Unexploded Molotov cocktails were reportedly found inside the gunman's home in San Jose. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
Here at San Jose City Hall, people are lining up to give their flowers and lighting up candles for the candlelight vigil for the VTA family. This was after the rail yard shooting this week. Now earlier, while walking through the crowd, you could feel a sense of solemnity. People were crying, embracing each other, and of course, trying to heal. One couple said their daughter was at work at the VTA when the shooting occurred.
About 6:30 in the morning, we were still in bed, and the first thing she said, "Don't worry, I'm safe," and that woke me right up. It was like, what are you talking about?
During his time working at Santa Clara County's Valley Transportation Authority, he said he knew all 9 of the victims.
I'm sad, I'm mad. It's crazy that this should happen. There's no excuse for it anymore.
The local sheriff's office said members of the office were armed with rescue equipment to immediately stop the gunman, identified as Samuel Cassidy, and he reportedly shot himself when he saw the deputies. Cassidy was found on the 3rd floor of a building, ABC News reports, and there were gun magazines that could hold up to 12 bullets, which are illegal in California, authorities said.
The people who were on the scene and traumatized directly by it, to please take time and talk about it to people.
One of the Vigil attendees said she knew one of the victims as her bus driver.
He was the one who called others that were in the rail yard to warn them about the active shooter that was on the scene. I take the bus every day home from work. I rely on it.
Friends and family as far as Oakland and Dublin came together.
It's amazing. It's great that we're all here to support each other. It feels good.
The sheriff's office says the gunman was a disgruntled VTA employee for many years, which may have contributed to why he targeted employees. Police say they're conducting a final search at Cassidy's home to ensure the property is safe. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Lavenders are blooming in California now. People can even visit lavender farms to pick their own. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang from a farm that will hold a lavender festival soon.
At Soul Food Farms in Vacaville, many varieties of lavender are blooming. The owner, Alexis Kofed, says she and a friend grow lavender together and name their business Herbes y Flores, or herbs and flowers in Spanish.
We make a lot of lavender products here at Herbes y Flores, and it's very common for lavender farms to sort of branch out and make added value products. So here we make a lavender lip balm, a lavender sugar scrub, soap. We also make sachets so people can put lavender in their clothes drawers and their clothes smell nice.
The flowers come in shades of purples, blues, lavenders, and whites. They grow many varieties for different uses.
The variety in full bloom here is called the Imperial Gem. It is a culinary variety used in food and desserts. The variety behind me is a French variety, and it has longer stems to make wreaths, decor, and other crafts.
They started growing lavender about 7 years ago and decided to open the farm up for U-Pick 3 years ago and made it into a lavender festival.
They'll be able to come out here, we'll show them how to pick lavender and give them a tie, and anything they can fit in this tie is what they pay for. But to come to the event's free and parking's free.
Attendees are required to register for a time slot so that they can be spaced out. A maximum capacity of 40 people on the field will allow for social distancing and a relaxed experience. Kofed says she just wants people to get a chance to get out on a quiet farm to enjoy themselves.
People just are happy to be out here. And, it's a beautiful place, and we don't rush anybody, so it's a chance to get out, but be at an event that's not overwhelming. There's not thousands of people, and it's kind of quiet, and you can still hear the birds in the trees, and so it just has a nice old world feel to it, and I think people like that.
She explains how to harvest the lavender.
You would kind of go down the base of the stem to just about the beginning of the main plant, and you would cut it so that you have a nice long stem. And that's probably the best way. Then when you get home, you can decide what you want to do with it, and you have nice long stems to make a decision if it's a floral arrangement or you're going to hang it upside down to dry and have dried lavender flower bouquets. So.
The lavender can be made into essential oil, flower water, lotion, and tea, which the farm sells during the festival. The festival runs for 2 weeks from May 29th to June 13th. They will offer 2 workshops, lavender wreath making and wand making. On June 12th, there will be vendors, lavender lemonade, and lavender chocolate chip cookies for sale. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
So how will changing prices affect your Memorial Day weekend? Well, there's good news and some bad news. NTD's Phil Zoe has those details.
It's Memorial Day weekend and summer is around the corner. But as Americans return to summer activities, they might get sticker shock. If you're going shopping, durable goods such as home appliances, computers, cars, and furniture are up over 7% compared to before the pandemic. Some experts say it's because of short supply, high demand for labor and products, and also inflation. Even summer favorites like hot dogs are up 11%. But there is good news as other prices went down. Air travel prices are still 18% below pre-pandemic levels, as cheap as they were 15 years ago. Hotel and Airbnb prices are down 5%. The cost for movies, amusement parks, concerts, or sporting events haven't changed much. But if you're looking to rent a car, you better book early. Car rentals cost almost 50% more than they used to. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
Up next, Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai is sentenced to prison again for charges stemming from his pro-democracy work. It adds to the sentence he's currently serving. And Britain's largest aircraft carrier is taking part in a massive NATO exercise in the Mediterranean. Find out more here on NTD News. Jailed Hong Kong media tycoon and Beijing critic Jimmy Lai has a new prison sentence of 14 months. It's over his role in an unauthorized assembly during one of the city's pro-democracy rallies in 2019.
Hong Kong handed down a new prison sentence to jailed media tycoon and Beijing critic Jimmy Lai on Friday. A van believed to be carrying him and 9 other defendants was seen entering the court this morning. Lai was sentenced to 14 months over his role in an unauthorized assembly on October 1st, China's National Day, during Hong Kong's pro-democracy rallies 2 years ago. The other 9 activists were sentenced to up to 18 months. All 10 had earlier this month pled guilty in a lower court to organizing an unauthorized assembly. One activist's spouse condemned Friday's outcome.
I think this is a very heavy sentence, and it is a very big threat to Hong Kongers' right to peaceful assembly and protest, which is guaranteed in the basic law.
Since December, Lai has already been serving sentences adding up to 14 months for participating in similar demonstrations in 2019. The judge who delivered Lai's sentence on Friday said part of the new sentence would be served concurrently. That means Lai faces a total of 20 months in prison so far. Lai's repeated arrests have drawn criticism from Western governments and international rights groups who raised concerns over waning freedoms in the city. China imposed the national security law in 2020 in response to the protests that punishes anything Beijing considers as subversion, secession, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces, with up to life in prison. Lai, who Beijing sees as a traitor, faces 3 more charges under that law.
The shares of Jimmy Lai's media company are soaring by over 300% in Hong Kong. It's the second time in less than a year. This despite Beijing's efforts to suppress media freedom in Hong Kong. NTD's Don Ma has more.
The Chinese regime is seeing difficulties stamping out Hong Kongers' desire for freedom. Despite Beijing's crackdown on the city, pro-democracy newspaper company Next Digital saw its stock prices soar by over 300% on Thursday. Residents rallied with their wallets behind the media company after it resumed trading on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Next Digital publishes the pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily. The company was founded by Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Next Digital halted trading earlier this month as Hong Kong authorities froze Lai's 70% stake in the company and 3 of his bank accounts.
A new British aircraft carrier is about to set sail on its maiden voyage. It shows that post-Brexit Britain is ready to defend Western interests and eager to see China respect international rules.
The UK's new $4.2 billion aircraft carrier is underway on its maiden voyage, an 8-month tour that will cross through the South China Sea and in doing so send a clear signal to Beijing. Fighter jets took off from the deck of the HMS Queen Elizabeth this week in the Mediterranean as part of NATO exercises. Watching the drills was NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg himself.
It sends a message of NATO's resolve and our capability and willingness to defend all allies against any threat. And it also sends a message of how NATO allies can operate together.
China claims 90% of the South China Sea, although several regional countries contest the boundaries, and the US has regularly sent warships through the area. Britain was the main battlefield ally of the US in Iraq and Afghanistan, and alongside France, the principal military power in the European Union. But its 2016 vote to leave the EU raised questions about its global role. London announced its biggest military spending increase since the Cold War late last year, partly in response to those concerns. Commodore Steve Morehouse is the vessel's captain.
Well, I think it shows that we're a global navy and wanting to be back out there. We'll be operating with the United States, but also regional partners, Singapore, Japan, Republic of Korea, other ASEAN nations. Will not only be exercising militarily, but also supporting the government's wider objectives in the region. I mean, the economies out there are growing. It's an increasingly important part of the world. So hopefully, the aim for us is this deployment will be the first of a more persistent presence for the United Kingdom in that region.
Coming up, a policewoman in France is fighting for her life after a knife attack on Friday morning. This is the 3rd direct assault on police officers in about a month. And an increase in the CCP virus variant from India casts doubt over the UK's lockdown ending in June. The Prime Minister says the country may have to wait.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
A policewoman in France is fighting for her life after a knife attack on Friday morning. This is the third direct assault on police officers in about a month. NTD's Divests has more from Paris.
A policewoman is in critical condition Friday after she was stabbed by a man at a police station in the city of Nantes in France. Local reports says he then took the officer's gun and fled. More than 240 soldiers were deployed. The suspect was shot dead and 2 soldiers were wounded. The local says he was known by police and on the list of suspected radicals. This is the third attack on police officers in about a month, including one terrorist attack. This new attack follows a peak of violence and criminality in the country for over 1 month. In reaction to this, policemen demonstrated last week and blamed the justice system for its lack of severity towards convicted criminals. According to a police union spokesperson we met earlier this month, it's even hard for police agents to defend themselves, let alone to protect the population. Attal and other policemen told us they think the justice system seems to defend the assailant more than the victims. According to a poll published Thursday, 8 out of 10 people in France says the justice system is not harsh enough towards criminals. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
An increase in the virus variant originating in India casts doubt over the lockdown ending on June 21st. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the country may have to wait. Here's NTD's Jane Werrell with the details.
June 21st, a date we've remembered on the Prime Minister's roadmap for all lockdown restrictions to end. So far, the Prime Minister says that there hasn't been anything in the data to divert from that target.
But he warned that easing may get delayed beyond the summer solstice.
I'm afraid we just have to wait a little bit longer to see what's happening post step 3 on May the 17th. We have to see exactly what's happening. We are seeing some signs of increase in cases, particularly of the so-called Indian variant, the variant that B1617.2, the variant that originated in India.
However, he said that an increase in cases was expected as lockdown eased. In the UK, almost 7,000 cases of the Indian variant have been confirmed. Cases of the variant have doubled in a week. In the past week, 57 people died within 28 days of a positive test, up 14% from the previous week.
Ministers will be analysing data over the next 2 weeks to decide whether to end the lockdown as planned. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
An award-winning BBC radio presenter died last week after suffering blood clots following vaccination with the AstraZeneca vaccine.
The BBC Newcastle presenter Lisa Shaw developed severe headaches after a week of having the vaccine and fell seriously ill a few days later. The 44-year-old was treated in intensive care for blood clots and bleeding, but died last Friday. Her cause of death is still under investigation, but complication of AstraZeneca vaccination is listed as a consideration. According to the medicines regulator MHRA, 58 people have died in the UK after developing blood clots following the AstraZeneca jab.
The hospitality industry has been particularly hard hit during the pandemic, and hotels are keen to rebound. For the Savoy Hotel in London, that means creating an ambience reminiscent of the Roaring Twenties. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
The bartender carefully pours this GoldenEye cocktail into a straight-up glass at Sola's pop-up bar. It's a blend of whiskey, cognac, sweet vermouth, Campari, and spices. And it could help customers forget a difficult year of lockdowns and quarantines. It's part of a unique new theme at the Savoy Hotel's bar in London, aimed at enticing guests back after the pandemic.
People can expect at the Sola's bar an element of surprise, an element of the new
Savoy, which is for us where we broke the mold. The first time ever in the history there was a pop-up venue in the driveway, in this iconic driveway under the Savoy sign being created, which alone already created a lot of excitement in the community.
The overall theme of the bar takes inspiration from the 1920s, a time of prosperity in the Western world following the devastation of the First World War. A staple of the Savoy experience is the afternoon tea, which has been served since the hotel opened in 1889. Here, it includes finger sandwiches with fillings like cucumber and green pea hummus, medium rare beef with balsamic mayonnaise, as well as a range of delicate pastries and cakes. As government social distancing restrictions ease and hotels begin to open up again, the Savoy is also sprucing up its interior to welcome back guests to the wider hotel.
So the Roaring Twenties theme, as part of our Solas concept, we considered the fact that there's a lot of similarities to the 1920s, which was a very difficult time in history as well. People came out to celebrate, to socialize, to be cheerful once again.
The Savoy's new luxurious seafood bar offers oysters, lobster rolls, gravlax, and blue scallop ceviche. While the luxury offerings may be a bit of a gamble, they're certainly part of an all-out strategy, one that will hopefully fill the hotel's halls once more. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
After years of conservation efforts, the Iberian lynx population in Portugal and Spain has risen above 1,000 cats. Spain's Environment Ministry calling it a major leap towards conserving the endangered species.
The Iberian lynx, found mostly in Spain and Portugal, its population decreased significantly in the 20th century. In 2002, there were only 94 wild Iberian lynx in Spain and none in Portugal. An initiative was launched to protect the species. According to a recent statement by Spain's Environment Ministry, now there are over 1,000 Iberian lynx living in the wild, in the region as of the end of last year, a record high since the monitoring of the species began.
I think that there is no other example all over the world of a species who was so critically endangered and in such a fast and strong recovery.
Facilities like this one breed the Iberian lynx. After being born and raised, the cats are released into the wild, growing quite a crowd of curious onlookers. Its prominent sideburns and ear tufts are what set the Iberian lynx apart. The females don't seem to mind the beard. Despite the increase in their numbers, the lynx is still considered endangered. The Worldwide Fund for Nature says the population would need to rise to at least 3,000 to no longer be considered endangered.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.